Okay, we're on the bottom of Beis Amud Beis, and just to backtrack, we're talking about counting the kings. The king's account of his years of reign is from Nisan. And the Gemara wanted to know, how do you know that? Rabbi Yochanan asked, how do you know? So far, I brought a pasuk in Malachim that says the Beis Hamikdash was started to be built in the 480th year of Yetzias Mitzrayim, which is the fourth year of Shlomo Melech's reign. The fact that it said both of them in the same breath, that counting the years of Yetzias Mitzrayim and the years of Shlomo Melech's reign, so that's the hekish to say that it's starting from the same starting point. So it must be from Nisan, the same way as Yetzias Mitzrayim. But the Gemara questions, who says that Yetzias Mitzrayim, the years of Yetzias Mitzrayim is counted from Nisan, even though it happened in Nisan and the months are counted from Nisan, but doesn't mean that the yearly count. It could be that once it came to Tishrei, the year progresses. Maybe the count of Mitzrayim is also from Tishrei. So the Gemara proves, because we're holding in the middle of the proof, that it said by Aaron. Aaron died Rosh Chodesh Av in the 40th year, and Moshe Rabbeinu, the beginning of Sefer Devarim, he speaks in Shvat of the 40th year, and it didn't advance a year. If you say that in Av it's the 40th year, and in Shvat it's still the 40th year, that means that we passed by Tishrei and nothing happened. It's still the 40th year. So you see that Tishrei did not make the year progress. That was the Gemara's. The Gemara just ended off. It doesn't say opening the pasuk over there. That's the 40th year of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So the Gemara said Gzera Shava, Shna Sesrim, Shna Sesrim, Shna Sabom, Shna Sabom. It means from Yetzias Mitzrayim. So far the Gemara is happy. 4 lines from the bottom. Omimai, the Ma'aser the Av Kadum, Dilma Ma'aser the Shvat Kadum. The Gemara says, even though in the order of the Psukim in Parshas Masei, the end of Bamidbar, it says that Aaron died on Rosh Chodesh Av, and then in Sefer Devarim, in the beginning it says Moshe Rabbeinu spoke on Rosh Chodesh Shvat, but not necessarily does mean that it's an order. It could be that it's out of order, like in Mukdam B'Torah. It doesn't mean that necessarily that's the order chronologically. So maybe the whole speech of Moshe Rabbeinu, which was Rosh Chodesh Shvat of the 40th year, maybe he was talking before Rosh Chodesh Av of the 40th year. And even though the Psukim say Aaron died, and later on it says Moshe Rabbeinu spoke, maybe he was opposite. Maybe Moshe Rabbeinu spoke a couple of months before Aaron died. And when we say the 40th year in Shvat, it's much earlier than the 40th year of Av. And it didn't change in Nisan. The year changes in Tishrei.
But we're just saying that if Shvat came first, Shvat and Av are in the same year.
Shvat and Av of the same year. Shvat came first.
Yeah, I see.
After Av. Maybe we're talking about before Av. So Shvat, Adar, Nisan. Nisan didn't make
Iyar,
Siva, and Tammuz Av, and nothing happened yet. And in Tishrei, the year is going to come the 41st year. So the Gemara is questioning, maybe really Tishrei is the progression of the as one you count from Yetzias Mitzrayim, and not Nisan. So the Gemara says it can't be. Lo sakataitach, that can't be. It shouldn't enter your mind. Just preview the Gemara is going to say that it says that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke the speech of the beginning of the Devarim. It says that he spoke after they defeated Sichon, and that says in the pasuk over there in the beginning of the Devarim. And we're going to prove that when Aaron died, Sichon was still alive and kicking. He wasn't defeated yet. So you can't say that Moshe Rabbeinu's speech was before Aaron died. It was after Aaron died. So the Shvat comes after Aaron. That's going to be the answer. But the Gemara is going to take a little while to prove that when Aaron died, Sichon was still around. Don't think that the Shvat of Moshe Rabbeinu's speech is before of Aaron HaKohen's death. That Moshe Rabbeinu spoke after Sichon was defeated. When Aaron died, Sichon was still alive. It was still around. So that must be that Aaron died before Moshe Rabbeinu's speech. And then it was going to go to prove that. That's going to be the answer. That's a good answer. If that's true, so then the Psukim are in order. And Shvat came before Av, and the year didn't progress in Tishrei. Dechsiv, Vayishma, beginning of Dav Gimel, Vayishma Knani Melech Harod. Right after Aaron died, it says, Vayishma Knani Melech Harod, Kivo Yisrael Derech HaSorid. The Knani, the king of Arod, heard that Am Yisrael is coming, and they went to make war. And it says that right after Aaron died, And the Gemara is going to prove that it was an order over there, that he heard. The Gemara is going to first soon say that this Kanani is Sichon, or else the Gemara doesn't make sense. We just said a second ago that Sichon, the issue was if Sichon was alive or not. So Sichon was already, the Moshe Rabbeinu spoke the speech after Sichon was defeated. And here, Kanani, which we're going to say means Sichon, was alive after Aaron died. Much more Shama, what did he hear that he came to make war? Shama Shemay Sam, and Salko Nani Yaakov. He heard that Aaron died, and the Nani Yaakov, which were protecting Am Yisrael, left, and they were vulnerable now to attack. And that's because of Yisrael. And Kanani Melech Harod thought that now they'll be able to war against Am Yisrael. So you see that when Aaron died, Kanani Melech Harod, Sichon, was still alive. So it must be that Moshe Rabbeinu's speech was later. And they cried. It says when the congregation, Am Yisrael, saw that Aaron died, so it says they were crying. But the Gemara says a drush, not that Vayiru means they saw. Vayiru kol ha'edah means that they saw. The Eidah saw. So he says, you could read it, doesn't have the Kudus in the Torah, so you could read it that they were seen. Vayiru means that they saw. Vayiru means that they were seen. Now, what does it mean they were seen? They were seen because Anani Yaakov left, and now they were vulnerable. They were shlokish. How could you read? If you read Vayiru, the Gemara is going to say a drash. Besides the word Vayiru is Vayiru. Also, we're going to say now that what the word ki is. The Pashup Pshat is that the people saw ki gova. What does ki mean? They didn't see because Aaron died. They saw that. The word ki can mean that. The people saw that Aaron died. But the Gemara is going to say that they were feared. If Vayiru, that they feared. Why did they fear? Because Aaron died. So the Gemara is going to say that the word ki in the drash is going to be understood that it means because. And the Gemara brings down the famous Ma'amar that ki has many. The word ki has many definitions. The word ki has 4 translations, and Dilma, Ella, Daha. Means if, Dilma is maybe, Ella means rather, Daha is because. And the Gemara is using that the last one, Daha, because that the word and the drash is going to mean because, that the people feared because Aaron died. Rashi goes on to say, Agav, that the first one, which means if, it also includes when and that, which is what the Pashup Pshat over here, that the people saw that Aaron died. Rashi says that the Gemara, when it says 4, there's really 6 and 4. The first one, can sometimes mean then or that or when. But anyway, the Gemara's Rashi is to say that the ha means because. And now that we're darshaning that the people feared because Aaron died. So fine. So one of the things that I found Agav Rashi brings psukim and examples of all these 4 terms, and he brings proofs for each one of them. If you want to see Rashi elaborates about that. But what do we see? That when Aaron died, Sichon was still alive. But the Gemara says it doesn't say Sichon was alive. It says Kanani Melech Harod. We're talking about Sichon. And it says Moshe Rabbeinu darshan after Sichon was defeated. And you bring a proof that when Aaron died, Kanani Melech Harod was still alive. And you're saying as if it's the same person. It's not the same people. One is Sichon, one is Kanani Melech Harod. I mean, what's the comparison? Awesome, Kanan. Sichon. It's not that you can't prove anything. It's not the same people. Kanani was still around, but Sichon maybe was before Aaron died. Tana, they learned in the Brisa, who Sichon, who Aaron, who Kanan. It's all the same. It's all the same person. This is a drush. I think that just to point out that a lot of times when the Gemara says these things, it's drushes. We're going to have a lot of this today, and this doesn't mean the pshat. The pshat and drush are 2 different worlds. Both of them are true, but one is going to be true on a simple level, on a physical level. One is going to be on a esoteric level. But here the Gemara is saying, the Gemara takes it here that it's all the same, and therefore we could prove that it says that by Aaron, that when he died, Kanani Melech Harod was still alive. That's Sichon. And that means that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he said the drasha, Sichon had already died, Sichon was defeated. That means that Aaron died before Moshe Rabbeinu's speech, and Shvat of the 40th year, Av of the 40th year came before Shvat of the 40th year, and it didn't change a year, it didn't progress a year in Tishrei. So the Gemara's proof is good. The Gemara goes on to say, if it has all the same person, why does it have 3 names? Sichon, Arod, and Canaan. Sichon, Shadom, Sayach, Ben Midbar. Why is he called Sichon? The word Sayach means a young horse, a pony. It's called a Sayach. So why is he like a pony in the Midbar? Any pshat? What did we say over there? The Rashi doesn't explain in what way is he considered a small horse. I think it says on the side, I forgot, 1 second. On the side of the Gemara, some say that he's swift on his feet. Maybe the other pshat, someone going to say why he's called a young horse. And Canaan, Hashem Malchuso, his kingdom, his nation is Canaan. And Mashemo Arod Shemo, that his real name, his personal name would be Arod. Ikadamri, another way of understanding why he has three names. Arod Shadam Arod B'Midbar. Arod is a wild donkey, and he's similar to a wild donkey. Canaan again, Hashem Malchuso, that was his nation. And Mashemo Sichon Shemo, his proper name was Sichon. So the Gemara is happy with the proof that the year did not progress from Av until Shvat. So Av, Elul, Tishrei, Chesvan, Kislev, Teve, Shvat, all those months, the year didn't progress. So the Gemara had talked about Tishrei, maybe that Tishrei, maybe Tishrei is the beginning of the year. It says it can't be Tishrei because you see that nothing happened from Av until Shvat, the year did not progress. So it didn't only knock out Tishrei, it knocked out a lot. It knocked out Elul, and right because Aaron died in Rosh Chodesh Av, and it didn't progress a year in Elul and Tishrei and Cheshvan and Kislev and Teves and Shvat. It's still called the 40th year. So we knocked off 6 months that the year could not have progressed in the count of Yetzias Mitzrayim. But the Gemara asks, okay, got rid of 6, but you didn't get rid of everything yet. Then Rosh Hashanah Iyar. Iyar might be when the year changes. How do you know Nisan? As far as the count of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Again, the whole Josh now, we're really interested in kings. But we have the pasuk in Malachim that says that Shlomo Melech's reign is counted from the same point, starting point as Yetzias Mitzrayim. We just have to figure out when is Yetzias Mitzrayim counted from. So that's what the Gemara is working on, that we showed that these 6 months, the year on the count of Yetzias Mitzrayim did not progress. From Av until Shvat, Yetzias Mitzrayim, the years of counting of Yetzias Mitzrayim did not progress. The Gemara asks, maybe Iyar. There must be another proof to show that Iyar also the year didn't progress. The Chsiv also going to bring 2 psukim and show that the year didn't progress between Nisan and Iyar. It says, "Vahi b'chodesh harishon b'shana hashinis v'echad b'chodesh hukam Mishkan." The Mishkan was erected on the Chodesh harishon v'echad b'chodesh. Chodesh harishon v'echad b'chodesh. In the second year, the Nisan, they went out of Mitzrayim on Nisan. They left Mitzrayim on Nisan, and a year later, Nisan. On Rosh Chodesh Nisan of the following year, a whole year later, after Yetzias Mitzrayim, that's when the Mishkan was erected, and it's called Shana Hashenis. And now Chsiv, Vahi b'Shana Hashenis b'Chodesh Hasheni, Na'ala Anan Me'al Mishkan Ha'edus, that the cloud started moving from above the Mishkan in the Chodesh Hasheni, a month later. So in Nisan of the second year, the Mishkan was erected, and in Iyar of the second year, the cloud started moving. That means this later. So you see, from the first month to the second month, it didn't become a new year. We're counting from Yetzias Mitzrayim. The first year from Yetzias Mitzrayim, the second year from Yetzias Mitzrayim, and it says between Nisan and Iyar, it's still considered 1 month later. It's still considered the second year of Yetzias Mitzrayim. That means that we don't progress a year when Rosh Chodesh Iyar comes. Midikoi b'Nisan v'Kari L'Shana Shenis v'Kari b'Iyar v'Kari L'Shana Shenis v'Chlal Rosh Hashanah Lav Yahu. If from Nisan to Iyar it didn't progress a year, so you see Rosh Chodesh Iyar was not Rosh Hashanah from Yetzias Mitzrayim. As far as counting the years of Yetzias Mitzrayim, it doesn't progress by Iyar. Okay, so we got 6 months before. We have knocked out from Av until Shvat, and also we knocked out Iyar over here. But the Gemara still has some you didn't get rid of. You didn't knock out. You didn't. What's the word? Eliminate. Process of elimination. We're going to do process of elimination until we have only Nisan. So far we did 6 from Av until Shvat. Means Elul, Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Teves, and Shvat. And now also we eliminated Iyar. But the Gemara asks, Ve'ema Rosh Hashanah Sivan. Okay, maybe Sivan is the counting of the new year from Yetzias Mitzrayim. So there must be a different pasuk for that. That shouldn't enter your mind. Let's say from the Yisrael and Eretz Mitzrayim. When it talks about Matan Torah, so it says in the 3rd month after Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim. But if you're going to say that in Rosh Chodesh Sivan it progresses a year, so I should have counted it already the 2nd year, and it's not counted the 2nd year. So you see that Sivan also does not progress a year in the count from Yetzias Mitzrayim. So we also eliminated already Sivan. So 8 months are already eliminated. But the Gemara still says, three of them you still did not eliminate. Ve'ema Tammuz, Ve'ema Av, Ve'ema Adar. These three you still did not succeed in eliminating. We did eliminate everything from Elul, Av until Shvat means Elul. Elul, Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, Teves, Shvat. And also we just did now Iyar and Sivan. But you're still left with Tammuz, Av, and Adar. So how do you know that it's Nisan? The Gemara says the truth is that it's Nisan. It's our Mishnah. But we didn't prove it. You didn't prove it yet. So the Gemara goes further, a whole different proof to prove this point that you count kings from kings. Again, the whole thing is going to fall off now. Till now, we proved kings because the pasuk in Malachim says that kings and Mitzrayim are counted from the same point. But Shlomo Melech says 480 years from Yetzias Mitzrayim, the fourth year of Shlomo Melech's reign. That was a comparison. And if we'd be able to prove when we count Yetzias Mitzrayim, would be a good proof. But we weren't successful in proving when the count of Yetzias Mitzrayim is. So we don't know. So we have to start a new proof, and we'll go back to the subject, back to first base, as they say. How do you know that you count kings from Nisan? So Rabbi Elazar is going to offer a different shot. Till now it was a Yochanan. Now Rabbi Elazar is going to dash him. A new proof. It says a pasuk in Divrei Hayamim, also talking about Moshe, Shlomo Melech building the Beis Hamikdash, the same idea, but a different pasuk. It says Vayachal livnos b'chodesh hasheni b'sheni b'shnas Av l'malchuso. Shlomo Melech started building the Beis Hamikdash in the second month. That's Iyar. Basheni. That's the question what the word Basheni means. This question is going to be the question. What does this word Basheni mean? In the second month, on the second, in the fourth year of his reign. So how would you learn, anybody? It says here in the second month in the fourth year, but it also says the actual word Basheni. What does that mean? So my Sheni, what does that mean? And the Gemara is going to say it means in the second month of the count of his reign. Means it's the second month of the fourth year of his reign. That means that we're counting Iyar. It says openly Chodesh Hasheni. Chodesh Hasheni is Iyar. That's not a question. Like it says, Chodesh is Alachem Rosh Chodeshim. When you count months in the whole Tanakh, when you count months in the whole, at least after Yetzias Mitzrayim, whenever it says months, it's always counting from Nisan. So when it says Chodesh Hasheni, it's Iyar. And now it says it was the second month of the fourth year of his reign. That means that it was counted also from Nisan. If you say that the second month of the fourth year, this word Sheni means the second month, and it doesn't mean to say year. It says already Chodesh Hasheni, and it says it's also the second month of the fourth year of his reign. That means that his reign, the years of his reign, are counted from Nisan. If you call Iyar the second month of his reign, that means that the years of his reign go from Nisan. You counted the fourth year and the second month. That means that the year is progressed by Nisan. My Sheni. What does the word Sheni mean? Lav Sheni Li'arach Shemon Lo Malchus. That means the second month of the months that you count his kingship. That means that you started counting from Nisan. Beautiful. But the Gemara says, who says that that's what the word Sheni means? Maybe it means the second day of the month. Maybe it means the second day of the week. Maybe it means second day of the month. It means that he started building on Beis Iyar. Maybe that's what the pasuk means. It says the month, it says the year. So maybe it also says the day of the month. But the Gemara says, no, that's not the style. Whenever the pasuk wants to say the second of the month, it says so. In Cain, they should have said Sheni b'chodesh v'hed yav ksibei. It would have said b'chodesh hasheni v'sheni l'chodesh. That's the regular way that the psukim always talk. So if it doesn't say that, so it doesn't mean the second day of the month. Maybe it means Monday. It wants to tell you which day of the week it was. So the Gemara says it doesn't usually tell. What's that? The Gemara says, first of all, the pasuk doesn't tell you the day of the week. You never find the pasuk's interested in telling you the day of the week. So it's not going to tell that it was a Monday. Since it says right next to each other, that's a hekesh, that's a comparison, and both of them are going to be the same count. So if it says then it says Basheni, it also means the second month. It answers the first kasha also. It doesn't mean the second day of the month, it doesn't mean the second day of the week. It means the second month, and instead of the second month, Iyar, so it must mean the second month of the count of the king from his reign. And that means that the reign of the king is progressed always in Nisan. So that's what Elazar's proof that the count of the kings is from Nisan. So we had a long Rabbi Yochanan, and he was trying to learn out from the pasuk of Shlomo and Yetzias Mitzrayim, but it didn't work at the end because we were left with 3 months that still were not accounted for, Tammuz and Av and Adar. And therefore, we went on to a new drasha from Rabbi Elazar. But the Gemara does not bring a drasha that has all the drashas together. It's going to say the same thing over again. The whole page is going to say over, but it's not going to say the whole shakal v'tayr the whole time. It's just going to say the psukim. It's going to bring down all the psukim that we mentioned in both these drashas together. We'll just recap it again as we go along. Tanya Kavasa de Rabbi Yochanan, and also Taisa says it's also Tanya Kavasa de Rabbi Lazar. It's going to have in this verse, it's going to say both verses. How do you know that the kings are counted from Nisan? Shenema, the pasuk in Malachim. It says over there 480 years from Yitzhak Mitzrayim, the 4th year of Shlomo. That's one pasuk you need. But you need other pasukim also in order to dash in this, because maybe how do you know when Yitzhak Mitzrayim is? It's true. The pasuk compares the king's count to the Mitzrayim count. How do you know what the Mitzrayim count is? So you have to go on to the pasukim with Aaron and Moshe. In the 40th year in Av. That's the pasuk that tells you that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke in Shvat of the 40th year and still didn't change. And it's still in the psukim. You have to know that it's an order. These psukim we just mentioned are in order. So you have to know about Sichon over there. And Sichon was still alive when Aaron died, like it says by Yishmael Kanani. And the pasuk says that Am Yisrael was scared because now that Aaron died, the Kanani started coming. And it means by Yero, that because Aaron died. And the question was, what else was missing? That you have to know that it's not Eor. And then so you see from the first month until the second month, it did not progress a year. So you see that Eor is not Rosh Hashanah. And then maybe Sivan, so you see that the third month is not considered progressing a year, so Sivan also not. But then it didn't help. So you bring the pasuk that's in Divrei Hayamim, that was Rabbi pasuk. So over there you see that it says Chodesh Hasheni Vasheni. So you have all these drushes mentioned both for Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar, and the Gemara, the kasha might be why you need both of them for, and also you can ask that the first drusha was rejected because it wasn't enough. So Taisus on the bottom talks about it, but we'll leave it at that. So the Gemara is happy at this point. We proved that the kings are counted from Nisan, and that's the halacha. That we don't know yet. That's going to be the next Gemara. The Gemara just says so far that kings are counted from Nisan. So when you want to count the date and the star, you count according to the reign of the king. And when it comes to Chodesh Nisan, that's the cutoff point, and he gains a new year. If that's all good, now the Gemara starts out on the fourth wide line. Amar Chizda. Lo shana v'alo malchi Yisrael, lo malchi umas ha'olam. The Mishnah is only talking about Jewish kings, and the way we just mentioned now was about Shlomo Melech. So that's Jewish kings. Jewish kings, they progress a year. Just before we go further, that's a point, a very interesting point. The Mefarshim in Malachim and Divrei Hayamim, I guess, the place where it counts the Jewish history about all the kings, the Jewish kings. So there's many complications in the psukim that if you count up the amount of years that it attributes to each king, there's a lot of confusion over there because it's not synchronized. It doesn't work well. The psukim have difficulty. I'm not saying what the Gemara says. I'm saying a Gra. The Gra on the Deres Eliyah, he says a beautiful pshat, the one word pshat that answers many kashas in the Navi. When the Navi counts the years of kings, there's a lot of confusion over there. It doesn't fit. And he says it's all based on our Gemara. Our Gemara says when you count a Jewish king, it doesn't go according to his anniversary of how many years he reigned. You can say that a certain king reigned 4 years, and the next king reigned 5 years, but it's only based on what our Gemara says, that once you have one day in the year, it's considered a whole year. So you can say that he reigned 4 years, because you counted the first year that he came in, the end of Adar, or it could be that in 1 year you have 2 kings, which always you're going to have a few whenever the kings change, so it's the middle of a year. So between every 2 kings, you're going to get an extra year. And when you want to count how many years did this king reign, how many years did this king reign, and it really is subtract a year because both of them were counted. 1 year was counted for both of them. So the Gemara and Deres Eliyah says that and answers many kashas in the counts of the kings in Malachim and other Sforim. Anyway, now the Gemara says, yes, please.
Rabbi Schwab has a whole essay on this, and he says that the cheshbon is a couple hundred years. That's off. That our count of today.
That's probably a different cheshbon than I'm talking about. I'm just talking about when you have 1 extra year between every 2 kings. This Gemara answers that question.
What's the one word?
1 year. That our Gemara says that Jewish kings, the kings, there's when you count the king, Yom Echad B'Shana Chashav Shana, and if a king died in Sivan and somebody else took over, so when you want to count how many years did each king have, the first king, Nisan Iyar Sivan, is counted a year. Even 1 day into the new year is counted that he reigned in that year. You can call it his year. And if another king started in the year, till it comes Nisan, it's counted his year. and the next year you already counted the second year. So when you're going to count, one king had 12 years, the next king had 2 years, so altogether 12 and 2 is 14. It could be that it's really only 13, because between that year was counted for both of them. Every year between every 2 kings is going to be counted for 2 kings. So in the count, when you count a big number, you're going to get a lot of extra years. Doesn't mean on the calendar there were more years. It just means that the year was counted for both of them, like it wasn't before. That Shana Lebeit. It's the end of the first king and it's the beginning of this. So 2 years. So 1 year will be counted twice. So it answers a lot of questions and the counts and the Nevi. The Gemara continues. Amar Chisda. The Gemara is going to go now. The whole subject of today is going to be this issue that non-Jewish king, we also count in the Shtaros, we also count from their dates. Nowadays not. Now even the Loa Z, it doesn't go with the kings. But the change of when you want to put a date in a contract that has the reign of a Goyish king, when does the year progress by a non-Jewish king? And Tishrei. So 2 different counts. When you count the Jewish king, the year progresses in Nisan. When you count the Goyish king, so then the year progresses in Tishrei. How are we going to prove that? We're going to prove that because there's going to be Goyish kings coming up. We're going to bring now from the king Artaxerxes, that was in the days of Nehemiah, and we're going to see that it did not progress in Nisan. That's the drash now. Shenemar. This is the beginning of Sefer Nehemiah. It says in the 20th year in Kislev of the 20th year. And then the pasuk says afterwards, and whatever it says over there. So it says that from Kislev until Nisan is still considered the 20th year. The Gemara is assuming that it means the 20th year of Artaxerxes, even though only the second pasuk says so. The Gemara is going to point it out in the second, but the Gemara is assuming that it says in the first pasuk Kislev of the 20th year. It also means 20th year of the king Artaxerxes. So you have that from Kislev until Nisan, it didn't progress. But if it would have been the progression of the king is in Chodesh Nisan, so it should have been the 21st year already. So you see, because he's a Goyish king, even though he said by a Jewish king that it progresses by Chodesh Nisan, but this must be because he's a Goyish king. So from Kislev until Nisan, it did not progress. With the Koy Kislev, the correlation of Sesrim, the Koy Nisan, the correlation of Sesrim, the father Rosh Hashanah, Allah Nisan, since from Kislev until Nisan is still considered the 20th year. That means that the year did not progress in Chodesh Nisan. But the Gemara says that if you look here it says in the second pasuk it says Shnas Sesrim La'atachshas. But here in the first pasuk it doesn't say. It says Shnas Sesrim. It doesn't say La'atachshas. How do you know that it's the same count? That's the Gemara's question on the bottom line. The second pasuk says openly that it's counted the 20th year of Artaxerxes. Elahai, the first pasuk, who says that the count of 20 is from Artaxerxes. Dilma, there's some Beis. Dilma, maybe it's from a different count. It's something that happened a year later. So even though it calls it 20, it's really also the 21st from Artaxerxes. This is the Papa we had quoted before already. Since it says 2 times this word Shnas Esrim, so like the Gemara said before, Shnas Arbaim, the Gemara says whenever it's going to say the word Shnas with a year, and it's the same amount of years, it's going to be Exer Shavah. Okay. The next Gemara is really simple, because it's open psukim. But the Gemara is taking into consideration that people don't know the psukim, and it brings down the whole story. Over there, that's the said outside, then we'll see it inside, that Nehemiah was in Shushan Abira, that's where he was. Am Yisrael had already gone up and built a base of Mikdash, but people were still in Bavel and Paras, and Nehemiah, the Gemara talks about someplace else. If Nehemiah had gone, he came back again, he wasn't able to stay, whatever the reason was, but Nehemiah was in Shushan Abira, he was the butler, the royal butler for the king Artaxerxes, and people came from Yerushalayim, and he asked, "What's the situation?" And he said, "It's very bad." Even after they had, they built the base of Mikdash, they built the base of Mikdash already, but still the neighbors were very aggressive, and they had a lot of problems. And then Nehemiah went to the king Artaxerxes to ask the people that he'll be able to build a wall around Yerushalayim. And that's the book of Nehemiah is mostly about building the wall around Yerushalayim. So that's the story over here. So if you look at the pasuk, it's open that what happened over there, that in the Kislev of the 20th year, people came from Yerushalayim and told him the problem. And then in Nisan of the 20th year, he went to the king and told him that, can I go to Yerushalayim to build it up? So obviously that was the order, that's the chronological order. That first they told him what the problem is, then he went to the king to ask permission to go. So the Gemara is going to bring it down, even though it's open psukim over there. If anybody reads the psukim, they'll see obviously that is in order. But the Gemara reads the psukim, it brings a brisa that says so, and therefore it goes without saying that, or with saying that first happened Kislev of the 20th year, and then Nisan, and it's still considered the 20th year. So you see that Nisan did not progress the year because he's a Goyish king. I mean, the nice of the Kislev.
And which wall is that, the broad wall that we have?
That's okay. That's already whatever the wall of Yerushalayim. Whatever the wall of, that's the question. What's considered the wall of Yerushalayim of the Bayis Rishon? That archaeologists just that's what everybody's talking about. But they have the 20. They found 20 walls around Yerushalayim. So the question one, which is the one of Bayis Rishon? As long as they had a king, they could have been marked it also. So that's the question. What's considered the wall of Yerushalayim? That's archaeological question, and I don't know if there's a barur answer. We might the mice in the Kislev.
We're talking about by Shane.
This is that's the word it talks about in Shavuos. If the wall that they built in Bayesheni, if that is kedusha not, the more with that was that marking Yerushalayim. If it would have been a bigger wall. We come up with Allah. You have to have a king in order to remark Yerushalayim. So therefore, they didn't have a king at that time. So the walls of Bayesheni don't make kedusha Yerushalayim. Okay, that's different sugya. When we mind the mice of the Kislev Kadim, the mice of the Nisan Kadim. And the story over there in the beginning of the Nehemiah, who says that it's in chronological order? Maybe the story of Nisan happened first, and then the story of Kislev is about the 20th year, and there was no progression of Nisan, because from Nisan to Kislev, there's no Nisan in between, which is really the open pasuk over there. Los talk about it shouldn't enter your mind. Look in the psukim. But the Gemara brings a brayso for you, the Tanya. The brayso says the Ram Shama Hanani, the Nehemiah, the Kislev, Amar Nehemiah Lamelach Nisan. Hanani is the person who came from Yerushalayim, and he told Nehemiah the bad news that things are not going well in Yerushalayim. And then Nehemiah went to the king Artaxerxes to ask permission to be able to go and build up Yerushalayim. So it says the words that Hanani said to Nehemiah in Kislev, Nehemiah told to the king in Nisan. So it's from Kislev the following Nisan, and it's still called the 20th year. And now it says the whole story, and it brings down many psukim, Mamish, no Gemara, just many psukim, and in a row. The Baruch Shamar Hanani Hanani B'Kislev Shenema. What are the words that Hanani told Nehemiah? Here it starts. The brain Nehemiah ben Chachalya. Vayi b'chodesh Kislev. Shnas Esrim. V'anei Yisi b'Shushan Abira. Vayavo Hanani Echad Me'achai. Hu v'Anushim Yehuda. V'Eshalem al HaYehudim HaPleita. Hashem Yishavu min Hashevi al Yerushalayim. These are the words of Nehemiah. This is the Chronicles that Nehemiah wrote. It was in Kislev, the 20th year. As we said, it means 20th year of Artaxerxes. I was in Shushan Abira, and Hanani, one of my brothers, came together with other people from Yehuda, and I asked them about the Jews, the Pleita, how would you say Pleita? The remnant that remained of the captivity and in Yerushalayim. Means the people who came from Golis, they came to Yerushalayim. How are they doing? Vayomru li anisharim asher neshavu min hashevi sham b'Medina. I'm sorry. Vayomru li, they told me. They told me the following: Anisharim asher neshavu min hashevi sham b'Medina. Those who are left from the captivity, those who came to Eretz Yisrael from the Golos, they're in big problems and in humiliation. The Chomas Yerushalayim Faratzis, and the walls of Yerushalayim are broken down from the Churban Bayis Rishon. The Shareh and Nitzasubesh, and the gates are burnt by fire. So that's what Hanani told Nehemiah on the Kislev of the 20th year, that there's big problems in Yerushalayim. And then it says, Amar Nehemiah Lamelach, when he said the Brisa says that Nehemiah said this over to the king in Nisan a couple of months later, from Kislev, Teve, Shvat, then 4 months later, he told the king, and what does it say? Also, this continues the psukim in Nehemiah. In Nisan, of the 20th year of Artaxerxes, there was wine before him, and there was the job of Nehemiah to serve the king the wine. He was the royal butler. And I carried the wine. I picked up the wine. I gave it to the king. I wasn't evil before him. It means that he didn't have anything bad against me. That in general he thought well of me. But the king saw that my face didn't look good, and he asked me, what's the matter? You're not sick. And the king got suspicious that of course, that was the whole purpose, the whole job of the royal butler is to make sure no one's poisoning him. And he didn't look so easy. He didn't look like he was calm. So he was choshesh that maybe he's coming to poison him. You have some bad intention. So, what?
He got very scared.
Nehemiah was scared because he was accused of doing something against the king. And I said to the king, the king should live forever. It means I'm not trying to poison you. Should my face not look down? Not because I'm doing something bad to you, but because Yerushalayim is destroyed. The city, the cemetery of my forefathers. That means that even that wasn't the real reason why he was concerned, because the cemetery of his forefathers. It means because of the Beis Hamikdash, Yerushalayim, the Yer Hashem. But the Goyim understand more when you talk about Beis Kivros Avosai. This is the place of my forefathers. I want to build up the basic forest, Hariva, that the place where my forefathers are buried is the Musharech Lubaish. So that's why I'm concerned. So the king said, "What do you want?" So now he said, "I daven to Hashem." Either it means that on the spot in his heart he daven to Hashem, or it means that he daven to Hashem earlier, that Hashem should help him, the king favor his request. I said to the king, if it's good upon the king, and if I'm good in your eyes, I'm asking permission, you should send me to Yehuda, to the city of the cemeteries of the burial of my forefathers, and I want to rebuild it. He asked permission that he should have royal permission to go build Yerushalayim. The king told me, and happens to be in parentheses that the queen was sitting next to him. Till when do you want to go? How long do you want to go for? The king agreed. He sent me on this mission, and I gave him a time. I think it was about 12 years that he got permission to go to build up the city of Yerushalayim from the 20th year till the 32nd year of the king. You find again in the 32nd year. I think that's the latest date we have in the Tanakh, the 32nd year of the king Artaxerxes. Anyway, all this shows that obviously you read the Psukim, that first he got the message from Hanani in Kislev of the 20th year, and then he sent it over to the king to ask permission in the Nisan of the 20th year. Obviously, Nisan was after Kislev. And you see that the year didn't progress in Nisan, so you see, because he's a Goyish king, that's the reason why they didn't count from Nisan, and it more assumes if it wasn't Nisan, they counted from Tishrei. And that's all good. Sukkim and Nehemiah. There was a kasha that we find by Goyish king, which is called Daryavesh, that the year did not progress in Tishrei. So far, Chisda said that by a Goyish king, the year progresses in Tishrei. And the Gemara is going to ask, I'll show you a Goyish king, and the year did not progress in Tishrei. That's going to be a Yosef's question. Moshe ben Yosef. This is a pasuk in Chagai. Just to give a little preview, in Chagai it says that Chagai aroused the people, why we're not building the Beis HaMikdash. It was second year of Daryavesh, and they didn't build the Beis HaMikdash, and he gave a big mussar, what's happening? And they started building the Beis HaMikdash. I'll say the story a little bit, and then maybe it's necessary for the more, maybe not, just to get the story, that they started building the Beis HaMikdash, and neighboring governors, they came and said, what are you doing? So they said, we're building, and we have permission. The real story had been that Koresh had given permission a while back, and then he suspended the permission. That people wrote a sitna in the days of Achashverosh, Artaxerxes, whatever it was, and they stopped building the basement. It was suspended. They weren't allowed to build it. And then Chagai on his own, or Benavua, he told people to start building. It was illegal. It was against the authorities to build. And they said, send to the king Daryavesh, and we have what to tell him. What did they tell him? They told him that look in your archives, look in the royal library, whatever over there, and you'll find that we got permission. We got permission from Koresh, which was true. They got permission from Koresh. But it happens to be also that Koresh also suspended it also. And miraculously, they went to the archives and they looked for the records. They found the one that says they have permission. And they didn't find the one that says that it was suspended. And the king said, yes, they can build. And Daryavesh gave official authority to build. He even gave money and this. And he told all of the people who were bothering, they stay far away. If anybody's asking to interfere, is going to be punished. So that was the story. So this was in the second year of Daryavesh, and it says they finished building the Beis HaMikdash in the 6th year of Daryavesh. It took 4 years to build the Beis HaMikdash. So what does the Gemara want now? Masiv Rav Yosef. The Yom Esrim v'Arba l'Chodesh b'Shishi v'Shna Shtayim l'Daryavesh. Over there it says that's two psukim in a row. These two psukim are two psukim in a row. The first one is talking about when Chagai aroused to start building. That was on the 24th of Kislev. I'm sorry, 24th of Elul. Chodesh Hashishi, the 6th month is Elul, right? You know, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av, Elul. So the 6th month is Elul. And it says on the 24th of Elul, that's when they started building in the second year of Daryavesh. The next pasuk says that Chagai got a nevuah, and it says the date. The next pasuk, Bashvi, in the 7th month, that's already Tishrei, on the 21st of the month. That happens to be Hoshana Rabbah. The 21st of Tishrei is Hoshana Rabbah. He got a nevuah. But anyway, what happened? It says in 2 seconds. One pasuk from the other. It says the 24th of Elul, second year of the Daryavesh, and then it says the 7th month, and it doesn't say that it was now the 3rd year of the Daryavesh. Doesn't say. It just talks about the 7th month. It's just telling you the date. It doesn't say. It should have said it progressed the next year. Because if you say that the year you just finished saying by Goyish king, Tishrei is the cutoff point. So if in Elul it was the 6th year, so in Tishrei it should have been the 7th year. It doesn't say so. Now in the parentheses here it says V'shnas Shnayim. The parentheses is not true because there's no such pasuk. It doesn't say that. But it's understood. The fact that it doesn't say the 3rd year, it means that it's still the 2nd year. The Misa, if it's true that the Goyish kings progresses a year in Tishrei, Bashvi Bishnas Gimel Bodle, it should have said that's the 3rd year. And since it doesn't say so, so it's obviously still the 2nd year. And you see that it didn't progress from Elul to Tishrei. So it's a kasha. Rav Chisda said by Goyish king progresses in Tishrei, and you see that it did not progress in Tishrei. This king was a kosher king, and therefore they gave him the honor of counting him like a Jewish king. We're right. A Jewish king is counted from Nisan, the Goyish king is counted from Tishrei. This king happened to be a kosher king, and therefore they gave him the honor of counting his years according to the Jewish calendar, which means that Nisan is a progression for a king and not Tishrei. And the Gemara is going to soon say, well, I'm talking about Dayavesh, now you go to Koresh. What does the Dayavesh have to do with Koresh? The Gemara is going to say that he also was a kosher king. Or he's the same person, whatever the Gemara is going to say. But the Gemara is answering he was a kosher king, and therefore they gave him the honor of counting him like a Jewish king. That was Rabbi Teretz to Rav Yosef. Maskef Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef had a problem with this. Chada Dimkein Kosher Kroyadadi. I'm going to ask you a question because I'm going to show you that this king that you call kosher, and you're counting him like a Jewish king, I'm going to show you that he's also counting, that he's not counted like a Jewish king. Now here, again, it talks about Dayavesh. The Sheitzi, based on the Na, Ad Yom Klasa L'Yirach Ador, the Hish Na Shnis L'Malchus Dayavesh Malka. The pasuk says that the Beis HaMikdash was finished to be completed building on the 3rd of Adar, in the 6th year of Dayavesh. So what we have just now, Dayavesh, which we're talking about before Dayavesh, and we said that he's a kosher king, and you should count him like a Jewish king. What does that mean? When does the year change? In Nisan. That's what you said. He had a kasha that it didn't change from the 6th to the 7th. From Elul to Tishrei, it didn't progress. We said because he's a Jewish king. He's counted like a Jewish king. And we're going to count him by Nisan. But here, it says that in Adar, that's when they finished the Beis HaMikdash. The Tanya, there's no kasha yet. Okay, everything's fine. And Adar, in Gimel Adar, when they finished the Beis HaMikdash in the 6th year of Dayavesh. The Tanya, a year later, Ezra came up. Over there it says after finishing the Beis HaMikdash, they brought the Korban Pesach. This was Adar. So a month later, they brought the Korban Pesach. And then it says a year later, Ezra came up. Ezra left on the 12th of Nisan, the pasuk says so, which means a year later, not right away, not a month later. He didn't leave. The second Aliyah of Ezra was not a month after the building of the Beis HaMikdash. It says that a year later he left. So there's Adar of the 6th year, and then the following Nisan, not the next month, the following Adar Nisan. That means it's already the 7th year. And he left on Rosh Chodesh, he left on the 12th of Nisan. What does it mean? The Psukim, he left on the 12th of Nisan, and he arrived in Av. He arrived in the 5th month. That's the pasuk that's going to bring. So this Brisa says that a year later Ezra left. That he arrived and Av in the 5th month, the 7th year of the king. And the Kashi is it should have been already the 8th year. Because if in the 6th year Adar is the 6th year, and then a year later he left, that's already the 7th year. And then in Av, we passed the Nisan. We passed 2 Nisans from Adar until Ezra arrived. Adar, from the building of the finishing of the Beis HaMikdash in Adar until Ezra's arrival was 2 Nisans passed by. So it should have been the 8th year. If it's Tishrei, then only 1 Tishrei passed by. But if it's Nisan, 2 Nisans passed by. Yes, please. Anybody? If it's true that Nisan, that this king is considered a Jewish king, is considered a Jewish count, and Nisan is when he progresses a year, should have said it's the 8th year already. There's a little catch over here that the Gemara doesn't tell us, that when it says over there it was the 7th year of the king, it doesn't say the Yavesh over there, it says Atachshast. But the Gemara is assuming that's all the same person. Even Rav Yosef in his Kasha also assumes that the Yavesh is Atachshast. Right away the Gemara is going to say that, but it's interesting the Gemara doesn't tell us openly. But now
there's a very short Marsha here when it says about the names that he says Metzino Milos Mischalfos Kevis and Kesev, Simla and Shlomo, and Afkan, Koresh, and Kosher. And he says that Acharshtaza was Koresh, and Koresh is Al Shema Kosher. It's a Milos Mischalfos.
That's coming up in one more line. One more line. The Gemara is going to say Kosh Melo Kasher Hoya. That's what the Gemara is. The Gemara is going to say he's called Koresh because that's what the Gemara is going to say. So far we just said Koresh is kosher. The Gemara, what you're saying that the word Koresh has to do with kosher. That's the Gemara going to say. The Gemara is going to say that. We'll see it in one line. And the Maharsha is helping out, but you said that it's not in the same order. Kaf Reishin, Kaf Shin Reish. So he brings that you find Salma similar. Good. So first, if Yosef didn't understand what the Ravo said, I asked the Kasha that the Yavesh, before, if Yosef was Kasha, back up. The first Kasha of Yosef before, he said that the Yavesh from the, what is it by Chagai, from the 6th till the 7th year, I'm sorry, from the 6th to the 7th month, from Elul till Tishrei, in the 2nd year of the Yavesh, it didn't progress. And as Kasha was, you're saying that a Goyish king progresses in Tishrei, he didn't progress from Elul to Tishrei. Ravo answered, Koresh was kosher. So he's talking about the Yavesh. You bring me Koresh is kosher. I'm talking about the Yavesh. That's what this Kasha over here. The old 4 lines up. Me dummy. What's the comparison to answer my question? Hasam Koresh, Shachad the Yavesh. I say out of Kasha the Yavesh that he didn't progress, and you answer me that Koresh is kosher. What does that have to do with each other? The answer is Tana who Koresh, who the Yavesh, or Atashas. It's all the same person. If it's all the same person, why does he have 3 names? Similarly, what we had before in Amar Aleph about Arod and Kanani and Sichon. So what does that have to do? Koresh and Yavesh and Atashas is all the same person. Why does he have 3 names? Here's what he said, Dr. Manuel, Koresh and Malach Kosher Haya. Koresh is called kosher because he is kosher. And the Maharsha says, what does Koresh have to do with kosher? Because you switch around the letters. Sometimes you find that words can be, so one word is unjumbled, jumbled, whatever. You could.
Actually, it connects with the Maharsha over there that you just mentioned, because there's a hachra from Nida that Sichon and Og were brothers and that they were B'nai Nephilim. So the answer the Gemara has to, that was the Kasha. And the answer the Gemara was, Arad was the Shem Medina and he was the Melech Arad. And therefore Sichon is called Arad al Shem, the Melech of the Medina Arad. So it goes together.
I'll ask you in a minute what you mean, because I didn't follow what you meant. We're almost finished now, so please tell me again. At this point, the Gemara says that they're all the same. Why is he called Koresh? Because he was kosher. Why is he called Artachshas, Tal Shem Malchuso? That was the nation, or it means the official name that the kings got. So that's why we could talk about Yavesh. Why did he not progress in Tishrei? And the answer is because he was kosher. How he was kosher? Because he also was called Koresh. We call him Kasha, but the first Kasha is still a Kasha. What was the first Kasha? Yosef said, if you're telling me that he's kosher, how come by the 7th and 8th year it didn't progress? He said, Yosef said, if you're right, that it's considered a Melech kosher, and therefore you count him as a Jewish king, the same way the Jewish kings count, how come when it says that they finished the Beis HaMikdash in the 6th year, and Ezra came up after 2 Nisans, how come it's not called the 8th year? This kosher king, he went sour. So at one point they counted him as the kosher king. That means when it was in the 2nd year. In the 2nd year, by Tishrei, we didn't count the new year because he was kosher at that time, and therefore we counted him the count of a Jewish king, which only changes in Nisan, not on Tishrei. But when we're talking about the 7th and 8th year, over there, he's already became sour, and we don't count him anymore as a Jewish king. He went sour, and therefore we count him like a Goyish king, and between the Adar of the 6th year, even though 2 Nisans passed, only Tishrei, 1 Tishrei passed, and that's why it's called the 7th year. It's not called the 8th year. The Gemara is going to go on. We're stopping over here, but the Gemara is going to continue to say what went sour about him. So just to review today's Gemara, the beginning of the Gemara finished the drasha. How do we know that a Jewish king comes from Nisan? And we said that the drasha from Shlomo Melech in Sefer Malachim that compares him to Yetzias Mitzrayim, it does not suffice because there are still 3 months that are not accounted for. So the Gemara also brings the pasuk in Divrei Yamim, which is over there, Chodesh Hasheni Basheni, and it means the 2nd month of the rain. And the Nisi is counted from Iyar. That means the 1st month of the rain is Nisan. That's a good proof. The Gemara is happy with that proof. It brings a price that has both proofs, and the Jewish king is counted from Nisan. Then the Gemara said, Rav Chisda says that a Goyish king is counted from Tishrei, not from Nisan, and the proof was because in Nehemiah it says Kislev, or the king of Artachshas. It's a Goyish king. It says that in Kislev, the 20th year, and Nisan in the 20th year, and you see that Nisan did not progress him a year. It must be because the Goyish king is counted from Tishrei and not from Nisan. The Marikasha that Adayavesh, you see from the 6th month to the 7th month in the 2nd year, it didn't progress a year. From Elul to Tishrei, it didn't progress. The Gemara says because he was counted as a Jewish count because he was a kosher. The Gemara is the kasha that this same king, when it came to his 7th and 8th year, you don't see that he's counting from Nisan, because then it would have been the 8th year, and he's only counted as the 7th year. That's talking about when Ezra came up, and you only called it the 7th year, and according to the Jewish count, it should have been already his 8th year. So the Gemara said because he went sour, and therefore they took away that honor of counting him like a Jewish king, and they counted him like a Goyish king back to Tishrei, and from Adar, the 6th year, until passing by 2 Nisans, only 1 Tishrei passed by, so it still was the 7th year, it wasn't the 8th year. And tomorrow we'll see what went sour about this person. One word that this Gemara that says Koresh, Atashas, and Dayavesh is all the same person is the Drash, which is Rochak Ben Pshat. If you look in the Pshat, it's impossible. The Pshat in the Psukim is clearly that there's Artashas and there's a Dayavesh and there's a Koresh. The Baal HaMaor points that over here, and he says the Gemara is a Drash and not a Pshat. And people want to ask the question, what's the truth? The answer is there are 2 truths. Well, everything is true. There's Pshat, Remez, Jewish, so everything is true. But there's a Pshat level, and usually that's what you saw with your eyes. And there's a Drash level, which is something usually esoteric. And then there's a Remez and a Sod. Everything is true, but there are different truths. It's talking about different subjects. But just to remember, even though you learn the Psukim, the Gemara over here, it sounds very simple, but the Psukim, it doesn't, you can't read the Psukim like that. So just to point out that this is a Drash. Rashi seems to say that even when the Gemara says over here that Koresh and the Yavesh is the same, it doesn't mean Koresh and the Yavesh is the same. Clearly 2 people. Rashi says that the Yavesh is also called Koresh. He's also called Koresh, as like, there's the Koresh, like that kind of thing. But the Gemara seems to say also Atashas. The Gemara is not just saying the name, the Gemara is saying the people are also the same. So this is a Drash and not the Pshat, just to point out, Baal HaMaor points that out.
Yavesh was Darius?
Yeah, Dayavesh is Darius.
That's the child of Achashverosh and Esther?
So that's what the Medrash says. It doesn't say the pasuk. It doesn't say the pasuk. There's a Medrash that says like that the Dayavesh that led to build the Beis Hamikdash was the child of Esther.
Then he would be Jewish.
Then he would be Jewish. That's you're saying something else. But the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says the reason why Jewish is because it's Melech Kosher. Later on he went sour. So the Gemara's not going like that. It seems the Gemara is not. It's a nice point. Moshe is saying that if Dayavesh was the son of Esther, that's another reason why you should call him Jewish, because he was Jewish, even though he was the king, even though he was the king of Paras, the Kosher king, and but he was maybe Jewish by birth. But the Gemara doesn't say that, and it's not clear. The Medrash doesn't say in the pasuk, and the place could be a machlokas about it. But the Gemara says the reason why is because he was a kosher king and he was a good king, and at then when he turned sour, they started counting him like a Goyish king. Yes, Rav Manuel, can you say that again, please?
Okay, basically the idea in our sugya is that we're trying to prove from the death of Moshe, the death of Aaron, and the conquering of Moshe of Sichon from the chronology that Jewish kings are from Nisan, and then we're going to say that Goyish kings are from Tishrei, and then comes in the whole sugya of what about Dayavesh, who if he was kosher, so what are we going to do? Because Malchus goes from Nisan if he's Jewish, but not if he's just kosher. So that's a different issue. But back when we were trying the beginning of the sugya to prove that the chronology of Aaron dying before Sichon, so we mentioned in the Gemara that Sichon and Canaan and Arad are all the same.
Yes.
So the Marsha says the real kasha is, we know that Sichon's not from Bnei Canaan because we know from Nida Daf Samach Aleph, Amud Aleph, that Sichon and Og were brothers and they were Bar Shemachazi, which means they were Bnei Nephilim from the Elyonim. So therefore he says you have to answer that Arad is Al Shem the Medina, and because we know that Sichon became the king of Arad, so Sichon is called Arad Al Shem that he was the king of Arad. So it's a similar kind of answer that we have weiter. But the main point is, again, in Pshat, like you said, which is that to keep cup with the Pshat of the Sugya, we just have to realize that we're trying to date chronology in order to prove the point that, first of all, Jewish years are, the Malachim are Nechshav, Nisan, and then we're going to say the Goyim are next shall be Tishrei, and not find a steer in that. And yeah, as you pointed out, my Chavrus and I found learning the Sugya that it's clear that we're trying to answer up that if you go Aliba Demand Amr, that one day of a year can be like a whole year. So you answer a lot of problems in chronology in Jewish history, because you see that you could then count the last king and the next king. The same year that one ended and the other one began becomes the last year of the first one, as well as the first year of the next one. And then it will solve a lot of problems in dating.
Yeshikov, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Shakaya, call to.
Okay, we'll be back in about 3-4 minutes to continue Pirkei Avos today.